So today I just wanted to do a video on my favourite art books. I've got quite a large selection of art books. It's something that I'm always adding to, but today I picked out all my favourites and ones that I think would be good for anyone who's either interested in art or studying art, or just wants something to look at to see art that other artists have done and something to be inspired by. So this is my collection of my favourite books. So the first book I'm going to start with is Imaginative Realism, and this is by James Gurney. You'll probably recognise him from Dinotopia, which is one of the most beautiful books you will ever look at. And I say look at because it's primarily visual, even though the story is absolutely beautiful as well. And this book is just fantastic for anyone who's trying to draw stuff that they're imagining. It's completely made up. And they don't know how to get it from their head onto the paper. This book is absolutely fantastic for that. And it's got so many of his original paintings and drawings in here. Like, I think there's quite a bit of the stuff that he did for National Geographic, a lot of the drawings and paintings that he did for Dinotopia. And speaking of Dinotopia, if you haven't read it or if you don't have the books, seriously do. It's one of the most beautiful books you will ever get. And it's just fantastic for inspiration as well, because every picture is so cram-packed full of ideas, you can't help but get inspired by it. And this book is definitely a good one, especially if you're into fantasy, science fiction or anything like that. This is one of the good ones to recommend. The next one is one that I did mention last year, but it's one of the books that I think if you're just going to get one book for your whole life, which is about arts, this is the one to get it, because it's fantastic. It just covers everything that they don't teach you in art school, which they should, but they don't, or at least they didn't in my case, and in the case of a lot of people that I know. It covers pretty much every single different medium, so watercolour, pastels. From what I remember, it doesn't cover sculpting. It's primarily kind of drawing and paint based. And it's fantastic because it covers all the different techniques for priming canvases, priming paper, what the name of different types of papers are, what the name for different pencils, why they're named that, the history of it, tricks, methods, things like how to lay out your studio. And one of the things I like is that it's got all these beautiful pictures, which I don't know about other people, but I love to see things like this because you see an art kit that's really been used and loved and been allowed to create beautiful things. And when I see stuff like this, I can't help but get ideas, because for me that's beautiful. It's a well-used kit, and it's also just beautifully laid out, beautifully illustrated, photographed. Even if you've got someone who maybe isn't terribly fond of reading, this book isn't heavy to read. It's broken down very simply. You won't get scared by kind of huge chunks of text. It's all broken down into very manageable little bite-sized pieces. And it's fantastic. I cannot over-recommend this book. Every single time I have a chance to browse through it, I learn something new. It's just, in my opinion, it's one of the best books I've ever bought for art. So this is a biggie. If there's one that I recommend, it's this one. And the next one I got this pretty recently. It's one of the newer ones in my kind of collection of art books. And this covers coloured pencils, which, believe it or not, was actually quite hard to find a book that was any good for coloured pencil, because it's considered quite a kind of childish medium. But this book completely proves that whole assumption wrong. It's very, very, very good. It covers all the materials, all the techniques, and a lot of things that, even though you might not use, it's still very interesting. All the different tools and techniques. It's a really, really good book, and it has some fantastic tips on how to draw realistically with coloured pencils. And also it has a really good section on what tools to start with, because it's a bit like paint, you know, there's not just one kind of paint, there's many different kinds, different artists prefer different things. And it's a really, really good book to get for anyone who wants to seriously consider either getting better at coloured pencil, or know someone who is thinking of going into coloured pencil, or if you just want to experiment. Anything to do with coloured pencil, I'd say this is a pretty good book to get for that. This is the second book from James Gurney, and this one is absolutely fantastic for just those tiny little things that you could never get quite right, like the shading or the light. It really helps you understand colour and light, really, I guess. It's got really, really good illustrations and examples from his own work, quite a lot from other people. And it's the kind of book that if I was going to get it, it's the kind of book that I would get hand in hand with his first book, because the first book kind of helps get your ideas out of your head onto the paper, and then the second book is fantastic for really teaching you how to make it come alive and how to come out of the paper. So these two books, I kind of consider them to be the same thing because they really do complement each other beautifully. If you're not into fantasy, then you might not appreciate this one, but if you're really looking to improve colour and light in your paintings and your drawings, primarily your paintings though, this is a book I would recommend. This is the newest addition to my collection. Recently the Works were doing art books on quite a few different artists. They did Degas, they did Rembrandt, Turner obviously. They also did Michelangelo. But I ended up getting the book on Turner because it's an artist that I really like. So it's just a book about his life, his paintings, which I know that's a very personal thing. Not everyone's going to like Turner's paintings. But I do, and they had an absolutely fantastic deal in the Works. So I grabbed it because I really like his paintings and I wanted to know more about them. And these kind of books I really like because whenever I'm getting a complete and utter creative block, I like to just flick through books like this. And I love collecting books like this, especially on my favourite artists, because it's really fascinating to just know more about them, know about their history, and just see how that really influenced their style of painting and the kind of subjects that they like to paint. So this is more of a personal favourite, but it's one of my favourites. This one is probably the oldest book I have in my entire collection of art books. I borrowed this one I don't know how many times from the library. I think I borrowed it about 30, 40 times easily before I finally saved up enough money to get it. And for me this is an inspiration book more than anything else. I love this woman's style of painting. It's just the kind of thing that when I see it, it just makes me feel really happy. So although it might not be the kind of thing that everyone's going to appreciate, it's something that I really, really like. I like the way that this woman tends to paint, with the focus being on the face and then everything else isn't so detailed. There hasn't been so much kind of work put into it. Obviously not everyone's going to appreciate it. You know, some of the paintings are the kind of thing that some people will like, some people will hate, but this is, it's kind of an inspiration book for me because it always gives me an idea, and the paintings, I adore them. They're beautiful. And there's one in particular, actually no, that's a lie, there's two in particular that I really like. This one, and then this one, which is my favourite. It just makes me feel really happy every time I see it because the character just looks so calm and peaceful, and then I really like how she adds all this texture to her paintings because to me that makes it very interesting. Though obviously this isn't going to be the kind of book that everyone's going to appreciate. And the last book, which is probably one of my favourites, I'd say most of you will probably have seen his work but not realised it's his work. For example, he did the posters for the original Star Wars. He also did the posters for the first two Harry Potter movies, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones. There's all these posters that you will recognise, but you never realise that it was him who did them. And his posters are iconic. I think everyone would recognise the Drew Struzan poster, and they're the kind of thing that's been imitated again and again, and it's something that a lot of people try and imitate in digital posters and kind of Photoshop posters, but it's never as good as the original. His Indiana Jones posters are just, they're beautiful, and it's the perfect coffee table book really, I think. Even if you're not an artist, or if you're not particularly interested in drawing or painting, it's the kind of thing that I think you could spend hours just browsing through because it just gives you so many ideas, and to see someone who's this good at their job and can create so many emotions and so many iconic posters, and just, I love it. This is one of my favourite books. If there's one book that I would recommend to get for when you just have no ideas and you don't know where to go and you're feeling kind of artist block, if there's any kind of book that really helps for artist block, this for me is it, because it's beautiful. The drawings are just so beautiful, and then, yeah, it's just my favourite. I don't really have anything else to say. I love this book, and I was so happy when I got it. I'm pretty sure that it's most of his posters, or at least the majority, because as you can see, this book is really quite thick and every single page is a poster. There's hardly any text, but you don't always need text, especially with drawings this beautiful. They kind of speak for themselves a little bit. So yeah, that is my suggestion for art books. I hope you like them. I hope some of them you found interesting, and maybe there's something that's going to work their way into your own collection. But I hope you like them, and I'll see you in the next video.